On May 11, 2023, Isabel left her house to go play football. But what was supposed to be a fun day turned into a real nightmare. The girl was the victim of a crime that shook not only the city of Curitiba, but also the whole country. Isabel Alexandra Mariano was an 8-year-old girl, daughter of Yorlane Alexandra. They lived in a slum called Dona Cida, located in the city of Curitiba, Brazil. This slum, where Isabelle lived, has a social project in which minors play sports to help with development and are also instructed to stay away from any criminal activity. On May 11, 2023, Isabelle, who was also participating in this project, left home at the end of the day to play football. The girl was supposed to return a few hours later. However, the hours passed, and Isabelle did not return to the house. Around 9 p.m., the girl's grandmother noticed that it was already very late and that Isabelle should already be home. Worried, she called Yorlane, her daughter and Isabelle's mother, and warned her about the fact that the girl had not yet returned home. Yorlane then called the place where the football match was taking place and discovered that that day, Isabelle had not participated in any game, especially because the girl had not even appeared at the place. From that moment on, family members felt that something was very wrong and realized the seriousness of the situation. Soon after, family, friends, and neighbors began looking for Isabelle, and the news of the missing girl quickly spread. Many in the slum mobilized and searched for Isabelle in every possible location. At first, the girl's mother imagined that she was at a friend's house and ended up losing track of when it was time to return home. There was also the possibility that she had followed a different path and as a result gotten lost on the streets. While several people were searching for Isabelle, one person spoke to her family, who saw her talking to a man who had recently moved to that location. That man was Joshua dos Santos, 37 years old. Joshua was a neighbor of Isabelle's family and had moved to the neighborhood about 10 days ago. He was a widower and a single father. His wife had died 3 months ago of a heart attack. Because of this, Joshua started to take care of his 2 children alone, a 14-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl who had already become friends with Isabelle and played with her a few times in the few days that they had moved to that neighborhood. Right from the start, some people who were searching for Isabelle began to find Josua's behavior strange, since when he was called to help with the search, he didn't want to leave his house, as if he wanted to prevent anyone from getting closer from the residents because he was hiding something. Only after much insistence from some neighbors did Josu leave his house and go to help with the search around the neighborhood. Later, he told some neighbors that he had seen Isabelle a few hours before she disappeared, and that at the time, the girl had asked him for money to buy a snack. He said that Isabelle went with him to his house, and there he gave her $20 so she could go buy a snack, and said that she would later come back and return her change. But the girl didn't. As soon as the story reached the girl's family, they immediately became suspicious. According to them, Isabelle had no reason to ask for money, much less from a person she barely knew. Some residents of the neighborhood who were suspicious, together with family members, decided to check the security cameras on the street where Isabelle had passed. In the images, they were able to see Isabelle running down the street, and shortly afterwards, it was possible to see a man running in the same direction, suggesting that at that moment she was trying to escape from someone who was chasing her. After that, Isabelle's grandmother went to the local police station, where she reported her granddaughter missing and reported that a new man in the neighborhood said he had given money to the girl and that he was the last person to be seen with her. The residents of the neighborhood who were involved in the searches and suspicious of Josu went to his house to question him about Isabelle, since until then, he was the last person to have contact with her. So he tended to these residents who entered his house. Once in the living room, Josu sat on the sofa and stated once again that he had given money to Isabelle so she could buy a snack, and emphasized that he had no involvement in her disappearance. Then, after these residents left, Josu went to Isabelle's family's house and asked her mother to give him back the change for the lunch, since the girl had disappeared with the money. At that moment, due to all the concern about the girl and the hustle and bustle of the search, the family and some residents of the neighborhood became very angry with him, and because some already suspected his involvement in the disappearance, an argument began. This argument ended up getting out of control, and some residents attacked Josu. immobilizing him and tying him to a post, according to sources, already tied up. Josue was heavily attacked by several residents of the neighborhood. According to sources, some men who make a living from criminal activities in the neighborhood wanted to kill Josue, as many suspected that he had done something to Isabelle. However, before they took Josue's life, a military police vehicle arrived at the scene and managed to calm the population down. Afterwards, Josue was taken to the hospital, where he was treated and his injuries were treated. He was under police escort and maintained his version of events, emphasizing that he had nothing to do with Isabelle's disappearance. Throughout the night, several residents of the neighborhood, police teams, the fire department, and even a helicopter searched for Isabelle. They looked for her in the woods close to the neighborhood, imagining that as she was running and possibly running away from someone, she had gone into the woods to hide and ended up getting lost. Everything was inspected, but no trace of the girl was found. On the morning of the 12th, sniffer dogs were taken to the neighborhood. The dogs were said to be roaming almost all over the place, but still, for some reason, they couldn't sniff out Isabelle anywhere. The police also took the dogs to the front of Josue's house, and again, the dogs were unable to sniff out any trace of the girl. That same morning, Josue was released from the hospital and taken to the police station to give a statement, and once again he insisted on telling the same version, that he had simply given $20 to Isabelle so that she could buy a snack, and then asked her if she gave him back his change, but she didn't. The police searched for Isabelle practically throughout the neighborhood and didn't even find a trace of her, as I already mentioned. With that, they decided to investigate Josue further since there were suspicions surrounding him. The police then went to his property and began an internal search of the place. As soon as they entered the room, the police noticed that there were a few drops of blood near the sofa. This is the sofa where Josue's 10-year-old daughter was sleeping. Suspicious, the police tried to drag the sofa and noticed that it was heavier than normal. When lifting the sofa, the police were faced with a scene that they described as stunning. Inside this sofa, there was Isabelle, just 8 years old, naked with her feet and hands tied, and with a white plastic bag on her head held by insulating tapes around her neck. Furthermore, there was blood on her thighs, indicating that she was subjected to forced intimate relations, something that was later confirmed. After locating the body, a forensic team was called to the scene, and according to them, there were signs of a struggle in a room at the back of the house. Because of this, the police believe that it was in this room that Josue committed the crime and then decided to hide the body inside the sofa. And this was the same sofa that Josue had sat on when he was questioned by the residents, and the same one that he had left his daughter sleeping on. Josue, who was already at the police station giving the statement I mentioned earlier, was arrested in the act, accused of the crime against Isabelle. In a new statement that lasted more than 3 hours, he insisted on his innocence and said he did not know how the girl's body had ended up on his sofa. He also said that he was a drug addict and that on the day Isabelle disappeared, he had used a lot of drugs, and that because of that, he didn't remember much. For the police, Joshua lured Isabelle by saying he would give her $20, and the girl, in her naivety, believed her. At the time she was filmed running, she was possibly heading to Josue's house, where she later became a victim of the crime. In the images recorded by the neighborhood security cameras, they showed Josue on the streets around 20 minutes after committing the crime. Inside his house, police found several toys that are not his children's age range, so police believe he used these toys to attract potential victims. Because of this, the police began to investigate why he had moved to that neighborhood. Believing that perhaps Isabelle was not his first victim, the police also began to investigate the possibility that he had taken advantage of his own children, who after the event were sent to a shelter and later left with an aunt who obtained temporary custody. In addition to all this, Josue also began to be investigated for the sudden death of his wife. Currently, Josue is imprisoned in a public jail in the city of Curitiba, and due to this case being recent, it is not yet known when his trial will take place. The crime against Isabelle left everyone in the neighborhood shaken, especially her family. She was buried on May 12, 2023, amid strong commotion from family and close people.